what I'm supposed to do and where I'm supposed to be.
Hmm.
And we were supposed to come over here and help. So I'm not tripping, but just the mental space of getting back to actually working out and just, you know, like, okay, amen. So yeah, but no, I'm good. And I did what I'm supposed to do. So now I'm ready for the reaping of this harvest, all this harvest. 16 years, especially the last
Amen.
10. Yes. But I did go to the movie. So, oh, you
Oh,
know what? I
uh-huh.
forgot to tell you about. I forgot to tell you about one thing when we do what you're watching. Once we introduce the show and everybody gets in here, I'll tell you about this other short I watched. It was an Oscar-winning short from 2022 uh,
Mm,
that I found and I watched. That's what I like watching. That's what I do like watching about the Oscars is like the little stuff, not little, but the smaller things like the documentaries and the short documentaries and the short films
mm-hmm.
and the animation, stuff like that that you would never hear about normally.
Mm,
So I
okay.
like watching to see those things. But yeah, so I did,
You know what?
and I want
So
to.
I didn't watch this movie. There's people on YouTube. What they do is they take a movie and they break
Mhm.
it down to the most important parts of it, and they talk
Hmm,
about it right on YouTube, and then you can see scenes of the
Pitfalls.
movies and all that stuff. And so there was a French movie, and the premises was this couple buys a house. Then the realtor tells them about the house. And so the thing about the house is if you go to the cellar, the basement level of the house, there's this trap door. If you go through the trap door, you go back 12 no, yeah, you go back in the past 12 hours, but when you
Mm,
come out, you're 3 days younger physically.
mm,
And the husband doesn't care about using it, the wife abuses it. And the husband tries to figure out a way to seal it up, and the wife tries to stop him because she keeps going through it. And she, to prove her point, she takes an apple that is rotting with her, and she goes back, and then she comes back out, and the apple is brand new, right? But the husband bites it, and ants are inside the apple because it's rotten.
uh, uh,
And his philosophy is, he says, how do you know what's inside you? He pulls a knife out. He's like, you might as well find out. And she's like, no, that how do you know you don't have ants inside of you? And da 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 da. Right.
oh,
And it is so
wow.
fascinating. The premises of the story is good. You can always, revamp or something like that, right? And so his boss is his friend and it's everything. And his boss has this penile implant that's electric or whatever, and it shorts because they're out shooting guns and it hits his thing, and he has to go get an operation, which is only in Japan. And so his boss leaves him his girl. He moves he gives his boss's girlfriend the key to his place, and she comes on to him. It's all this stuff in the story, and he's the good guy though. He rejects the other
Wait,
woman.
what?
Yeah, he rejects the other woman. His wife is sitting there trying to look younger, become a model, because that's what she ends up doing. I think towards the end, she becomes this model, and then she goes crazy because she's really not young on the inside. She's young only on the outside. And when she gets so crazy, him wanting to close this hole up that she keeps using, that ends up destroying the house or something. And then she's put in an insane asylum. And in insane asylum, she doesn't swallow her pill, but she takes the glass and she cuts herself. She sees ants coming out of her
You
at the
shut
end.
up.
And it's so
What was
interesting.
the significance of ants, I wonder, in the past?
I
Trying to read, you know what I
no
mean?
to show the inside of her rotting. Because I was like, well, why didn't they just use maggots or
Oh,
something?
because it's rotting. The
She's
ants
rotting,
represent the
rotting
rotting.
away on the inside, even though she's looking young on the outside. Because she keeps going. It's so interesting. And the real estate agent's like, when the husband approaches real estate, he's like, didn't you guys read the fine print about that house? It was in the contract,
Wow.
but I thought it's a French movie, and it was very interesting, the concept. I was like, wow, okay, that's a deep concept. Um, so I was just like, okay, I can like people want to go back in time and regain their youth. That's always been a thing, right? Um, some younger people want to get older faster, so they want to go ahead in time. Older people want to go back in time. Younger people want to go ahead in time.
It's funny, yeah, right. That's the craziest thing. That's the craziest thing. And you know, these kids now, and I like, hey, I say it's the high fructose corn syrup, the hormones
Hmm.
in the food, and the milk. These kids, even mine, all of our kids look older than us. You'll see
Right.
some, I'll be looking on Facebook. I'm like, oh, that must be her boyfriend. It's like, oh, say happy 21st birthday to my son. Your son. Like one guy did the photo shoot of his 16-year-old daughter. I would have bet $100 she was 32, and I'm not exaggerating. So it's funny how,
Mm,
like you said, the kids, and then they're even trying to make wear makeup older. These eyelashes at preteen tweens and stuff. Just they
right.
try to make themselves look older, and here we are, anti-aging, collagen, trying to get this, trying to suck this stuff back up and in. You know what I mean? Amen, somebody. So yeah, it's
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's the fascinating thing, and those are like stories we often don't think about because, like I tell even my students, as younger people, as youth, we thought we were invincible. Good morning, Felicia. We thought nothing would
hey,
happen to
Felicia.
us. We didn't consider our parents. Tragedies didn't happen normally around us as much.
Mhm.
Um, but this younger generation deals with a lot. Think about COVID, losing family to that.
Yeah, you know what? And here's the thing about the younger generation and us.
Hmm.
And I'll say this for across the world forever. We have to validate these kids are stressed and they have issues. So many times we're constantly, what you got to be stressed about? You ain't got to do nothing but go to school. You don't have no bills to pay. They have valid concerns and stuff too that
Hmm.
need to be addressed and validated. And we need to stop belittling what kids are going through. We really, really do. And then when
Well,
something happens to them or they act out or, harm themselves, it's like, well, I wish I would have known. They told you. You didn't validate them. You didn't care. You felt they had nothing to worry about because they didn't have an electric bill. And that's not true.
hmm, yep. So let's get this
Ready,
started the
ready.
way we get the thing started. Let's go. In a way. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Black Filmmakers Lounge. The Black Filmmakers Lounge is where independent filmmakers, whether novelists or professionals, come together to gain insight, perspective through education, information, networking, and to discuss industry best practices that will advance the Black interdependent film community. And we are sitting here at the Saturday morning indie industry shop talk. I'm your host, Michael Melvin, my co-host, Tamira TK Henderson, and we do what
You
we
know
do, what
what?
we do.
First, I want to good morning, everyone, but I want to give a shout out. She's probably not on here. She's not on here yet if she does join. But there is a lady. I went to a mixer on Thursday night, and this lady comes up to me. She's like, "You're from that show." And I was like, because I've been on set in Atlanta. So I'm like, I've been on some shows, sets,
Uh-huh.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, which show? She's like, that show on Saturday mornings, your TKT. I said, T. She said, yeah. Her name was Leslie West, and she watches the show from time to time.
Oh,
And I
thank
was
you,
like,
Leslie.
oh my goodness. So yeah, that was really cool. That was really cool. So I just wanted to give a shout out to her. It was great meeting her. And yeah, she recognized me from the show, which is the first time that it's ever happened.
Really?
Yeah, because if I meet other people, like when I met Thomas had already joined the show, so when Thomas came to meet me when I was in Houston, we sat and chopped it up. But he knew me from the show, like
Right.
because he's on there, and I've talked to Thomas several times on the phone. Yeah, so this is the first time someone has ever approached me and say, "Oh, you're on that show." Like I watched that show. I was like, "Oh." So you've had that, Michael?
Um, I am. I was in a Seven
Okay.
Eleven. Oh no, oh, yeah, I was in a 7-Eleven. They're like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
excuse me. You remember that? Yeah. And then we were in
Yeah.
Walmart and couples came up to us like, you're Michael and Tiffany. And we're like,
I
yes.
love it.
And they're like, we watch I Am. And they were telling us, breaking it down. And then, so it was
Ah.
like, oh. So hey, Jalen.
Hey,
So yeah,
Jalen.
it was interesting. But it takes you back because I had to think about my students too, because I
Hmm.
laugh when they do the school news and they're like, "Yeah, you're popular," because they're they do stuff on YouTube and all that, and the kids watch it. And they walk up to the eighth graders and like, "You're on the news," and the kids come back to
Oh,
class.
I love it.
And the little sixth graders, they just walk up to you and they be like, "I watched you on the news." I said, "What?"
Oh, I love that.
So
It's
it's
like,
kind of a,
see?
yeah, it's a beautiful thing, when people recognize you for your I tell them your hard work, but it's cool, I'm not famous, I'm just a regular guy trying to do what I do, make movies, teach kids how to make movies, and do my thing. It's-
It's like if someone knows you outside of your family, you're famous. Your family in your hometown, like, hey,
Mhm.
you know, that's too funny. But yeah, hey, more to come. So it's just the beginning of all what we have to get used to. I like not being famous because let me tell you, when I have to run to the store, usually I look decent. I make
Mhm.
sure I make it a point to look decent because you that's just me. I'm like I'm representing future husband. I'm representing my future family. So when I leave out the house, I'm not dressed to the T's, but I am looking decent. But those moments where you just gotta run across the street into that Family Dollar or run across the street to that store real quick and come home, and nobody knows you, those moments,
Oh
those
man.
moments. But yeah, I love the fact that when I've written something and I go to the premieres and they're
Mhm.
like, "Hey, can you take a picture of us?" With the actors, and I'm like, "Sure," and I'm taking pictures of people. Those are my favorite moments. I'm like, "Sure, I'll
Yeah,
take your picture."
it's crazy, like just those experiences, and I think that comes with aligning with the part two from last week, where we're talking about, you know, I didn't know what I didn't know. That kind of aligns with it because you don't know the
Yes.
after the thing. So we'll just talk about that today. But before we get started in talking about the major topic of today, let's talk about what did you watch? Name that show.
Well, I watched Texas, the second half of Texas last night, solidify there to the Elite Eight, and I don't know why Texas is holding that man's contract if they've already offered to him and tell him they're going to reveal it later.
Hmm.
But if Texas have not offered it, because remember, so my mom told me this Texas coach, and I'm gonna move into what I watched, but the Texas coach now he's an interim coach, but he's
Hmm.
coached under two. He coached under Rick Barnes, and he coached under the guy that just got got fired that
Right.
had the domestic case. But it's like so y'all ain't give this man a job, or y'all he signed a contract and y'all keeping it under wraps. Because if not, somebody finna pay this man because Texas boys look great playing. That's all I gotta say.
Hmm.
So shout out to Coach Rodney Terry. Do your thing, dude. Um, I did go see Creed 3,
Okay.
and and what the blessing was I was able to enjoy the movie as an audience and also have my director's hat on at the same time.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because he did a lot of close-ups, a lot of close-ups and like dirty one shots and stuff. So he did a lot of close-ups. But I love me some Wood Harris, and I have to find a movie for Wood Harris to be in. I love Wood Harris. He is such a phenomenal actor. I love Wood, but I love the family element. Like
Hmm.
it went straight from the boxing ring to him at home with his. I mean, it went straight from boxing to him at home with his child and his wife. Those moments. So I
Yeah.
love the family element that they brought into it, and then it kicked into second half. It kicked into the other gear, and but it was the music for me in the ring. when the
Okay.
music hit and when they were fighting that last major fight in the ring, and it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the Rocky kind of tone. Oh my goodness, I loved the music they used for that last fight scene in the ring. I loved it.
We're gonna have to. We know what we're gonna have to make Creed part of our in-depth conversation one day.
Hmm.
Um, because we don't want to give spoilers away because it's been
Right.
out long enough for people to see it.
Nah,
What, February?
I
No,
just seen
March,
it this
March,
week.
March. Yeah.
I just seen it.
Um,
Yeah, it was 3-3.
yeah. But still, it's almost a whole month. So y'all got into April.
That's April.
um,
But Liz, oh, go ahead.
but yeah, no, but like the dynamics of the story, right?
Hmm.
And then the end, after the match, all that stuff. Um, it's a good conversation to have, and it creates this conversational piece.
Hmm.
Um, because it's about thought process and how we see the world. Even after somebody has come into our lives and challenged it.
Ooh,
So,
ooh,
right? And so
ooh.
that's what I kind of liked about it. And then Tiffany was like, "Why didn't he?" I said, "Can't do that. Like it's not, you'll understand." And we talked about it in the car, but yeah.
Mhm. It was good, and
um
and and Creed. And I don't know if I've said this on the show before, but when I went to see Creed 1, I literally was bawling my eyes out at the end of the movie. Because I was like, "Oh my God, it's such a good movie." Then he said I had to prove that I'm not a mistake, and I'll listen. I'm like, I'm just
yeah.
crying, crying, crying. And the movie ends, and I'm like, oh my God, that was such a good movie. And I'm crying and I'm walking out from my seat and starting down the stairs. And God says, that's why I created you to make good movies.
Mm.
And I literally just started bawling again. I was like, ah, oh my goodness. So yeah, so Creed has a special place in my heart because it's one of the movie. It's really the only movie God has ever spoke to me like that in regards. After I said it was a good movie, that's what God told me. But
Yeah,
I
because all of them
mhm,
have been very
yeah,
powerful. Like
yes.
you gotta. It's not just the good part about this is, and
Mhm.
I get Rocky, right? But Creed is different from Rocky. It's his own
Mhm.
thing, and
Yeah.
it does give you that family dynamics of it. It's like it's this perfect trilogy right now because the first one was getting the world to accept me and recognizing that
Mm.
I'm here for a reason, right?
Mhm.
The second movie was I'm here, I'm doing this thing, but here comes this other guy who his family killed my father. Is the family that destroyed my dad, right? And
Yep.
you even have the other guy's story, which comes into the
Mhm.
third movie, right? Because then it shows that we are not our fathers.
Mm.
See,
Mm.
people miss those
That's
dynamics
good.
because the other boxer, um, Drago, right? And then so when you get that, there's a power behind it because even in that movie, they talked at the end, right? In this movie, it's like the boxers don't hold a grudge in the last three movies. You
Yep.
saw them coming back into so it was like, and when he was retiring, it came back full circle. It's like it's all about this breaking a cycle and creating a new, more positive cycle. That's what the
Yep.
Creed films are,
And that's what he
right?
kept saying. Yeah, no, yeah, let's go ahead and get you set up. Yeah, love. No, like he kept pushing it off because he's like, I'm done, I'm good. But anyway, we're not gonna get no spoilers. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dealing with
yes.
the
And
past and stuff. Yeah.
I watched another short that was a 2020 Academy Award winner last time I forgot. It's called Two Distant Strangers, and that
Mm-hmm.
was from 2022. And it was about a guy who kept running into it. He left this girl he had a one night stand with, and he kept living. The day kept repeating itself. The morning kept repeating itself between him and a police officer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's called Two Distant Strangers, and that was really it's probably about 15 minutes or so. I can't remember the exact time, but yeah, and that was very interesting. It became a little hard to watch at moments because I was like, okay, wait a minute, like
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute, because you start really feeling the emotion for it. But yeah, it's called Two Distant Strangers. I think it was on. I think I seen it on Netflix.
Oh, okay. I gotta check it out. So, any other movies? That was it. Those are two.
That was it for the week. Yeah, I'm gonna
All
go
right.
see. I'm gonna go. I want to go see Whale and oh, so there's a lot of movies coming out that if you watch Creed, you've probably seen a lot of trailers. So literally wrote down 5 movies, but
Mm-hmm.
that freaking 1,000 to 1 with Tiana Taylor that is coming out on March
Oh,
31st.
with her son, where she's with her
My
son.
clock
Yeah.
is set.
Tiffany and I looked at each other. It's that movie, The Blackening.
Ooh.
We looked at each other. She's like, okay, we're going to go see both of them. She's like, I don't like scary. I said, Blackening don't look really scary, but we go do it. She's like, it looks fun. I said, yeah, it looks fun. So we're going to go see that, The Blackening, and there was something else. Um, and you know what? There's there's a lot of movies coming out. It seems like the industry got back on track in 2021, 2022 after COVID, right? It seems
It
like
looks like
a
it.
slew of
I was
movies
writing down
just now are
names.
like boom, boom, boom. It
Yeah.
feels like these past years were slow because of how they had to shoot the projects, right?
And
You
it's
had
still
the
COVID
limit and
protocols.
distance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so hey Darrell, how you doing, man? Uh
Hey, Darrell.
so we watched Power. You know we
Okay.
gotta watch our Power, so we Power Book too. It's fun. It's getting fun. The Bad Batch, which is Star Wars, and of course the Mandalorian. I'll watch
Mhm.
those. And okay, so while we were on break, I actually watched some Tubi movies,
Okay.
right? And I didn't get to discuss them last week. So the Tubi movies I saw, I got to kind of pull up Tubi because I watched a lot of stuff on Tubi. Because I got to support our peoples. But I watched this movie called The Stepmother 1 and 2. There's two of
Mhm.
them. Stepmother 1. I mean Stepmother 2. They're
Mhm.
Tubi original movies done by with Marcus
Oh wow.
Houston, right? And Chris
Oh
Stokes,
yeah.
right? So
Yep.
they
Mhm.
got a deal with Tubi. They had a
Mhm.
third movie called Best Friend on there as well. That Marcus Houston. Um, so Tubi's really picking up a lot of black independent films. They're pushing them. If you're on Facebook, you'll see that the Tubi page, Facebook page, is pushing black independent films now.
Mhm.
Um, this is why I tell people what you like or don't like is subjective, right?
Right.
Because from Stepmother, there's a scene in Stepmother 2 that shows um, the stepmom. She's skits, right? She keeps seeing other people for other people, and
Mhm.
she's a serial killer. She marries men who are widowers who lost their wives and they have a son, and she then kills the husband, the dad, and leaves the sons behind. And this was because of a situation in her past, right?
Mhm.
So in Stepmother 2, people have been passing this video meme around where she kills a security guard, and they're like, this is bad filmmaking. Because in one instance, you see the security guard when she gets him, but when she picks him up to take the keys out, you see, and this is to put in context, you actually see the face of the son who helped get her locked up.
Oh, okay.
So she
That makes
sees
sense.
him as the son of her previous
Right.
husband she was trying to kill, who
Gotcha.
stops her from killing him. So this is why I say how you feel about something is subjective, because a lot of people are posting things and not giving it context. And there is the problem.
Mm,
We often speak out of context, or we
right.
take things, we don't talk about what context is something happening in. It's like posting a portion of a video, but not knowing what happened before or even after that created this moment.
Right.
And if people keep sharing it and sharing it, oh, bad filmmaking on Tubi, because that's what the meme was about. And I was like, that's stupid. You don't even know the context in which it's in. And if you didn't watch
Wow.
Stepmother, the first movie, then you watch the second movie, you probably won't understand. So again, it's all about context. And this is why I say I can't take people's opinions about movies all the time seriously, because your opinion is based on how you see the world. So you may say this movie is bad and I like it. I know Lewis and I have talked, and there's movies I liked he didn't like. There's movies he likes. I'm like, what? I remember Jamal told me when he liked Blair Witch Project, and I was like, I got my money back. I left. Like I wasn't feeling it. But that's okay. That's me. That doesn't mean it wasn't a good movie for other people.
Right.
You know. So those movies on Tubi and some other things. Watch Bel Air. Been there now, I think, on the 4th episode for Bel Air. And that's pretty much it so far. I got some
That's
movies
a
I gotta watch.
lot.
It's
That's
a
a
lot.
lot.
Those are shows though. It's easy to
Yeah.
watch shows because I can knock
Yeah,
out.
but still, you have to
Oh,
take the
Moon
time
Girl
to
and
sit
Devil
down and do
Dinosaur.
it.
I
Which
had to
one?
remind Moon
Oh,
Girl and Devil Dinosaur. I still they've
I need
updated more episodes on Disney Plus. So
I need to watch that, and I need to watch Bel Air. That's what I need to watch. I want to go watch Jesus Revolution and Whale, but I have to see where they're showing because I got that movie pass
oh
that's
yeah.
supposed to force me to go to the movies. But listen, I am so waiting on what's the day? The 25th.
Yep.
I have 6 more days to Tiana Taylor. I am literally Friday morning. I don't think I have anything to do that's on schedule now. I'm going to put that on my schedule. I will be there to the first freaking watch, first screening of that movie. I'm there. Focus Films actually sent me a screener thing, and you can win like a screening and $500 gift card or something. But I was like, oh, so I filled that out. I'm like, I just want to see it. I don't care how I see it. I just want to see it soon, now, like now. But anyway, yeah, guys, there's a lot of great movies coming out. So yeah, if you
Mm,
haven't been to the movies, I only seen them because of the trailer. Big George Foreman, one called Shavar. I don't know if you've seen that about a violinist back in the. It was a period
right.
piece about a black violinist. Um,
Okay.
but Fast and the Furious, I've never seen any of the Fast and Furious, but this particular last one they showed the preview for it. I was like, I
Really?
might check that
I
out.
don't know about that one. I was like,
Did you
nah.
did you see the trailer?
I've seen all of them. Yes, and I saw the trailer. Look, I'm sorry, Fast
I
and
I
Furious. I will not pay to go see Fast and Furious. I'll wait for it to come on HBO Max or something.
I said that looked pretty good. I might go
um,
check it out. Well, since I've never seen any of them, that'll be my first number 9. Okay,
I
but
mean,
what are
Fast
you
and
guys
Furious started
watching?
off really good. So, for some reason, my mouse has stopped working for a second. So I just clicked it on the charger to see why. But Darrell says he watched Bel Air, Swarm. That's on Amazon. It's about a serial killer.
I love
Stand by
Dominique, but I
Me,
can't watch that.
Footloose, and Valicia said she said, um, oh, she was talking about Creed. She said, "I see your point. I felt Creed 1 and Creed 2 was somewhat a continuation of Rocky, and Creed was amazing and standalone of Creed, which is Creed thing I think she's talking about. It was about him after Rocky, and if that makes sense. Yeah. But the thing is, Creed 1 and Creed 2 were coming away from Rocky. Like they were the shift for us. Even though Rocky was in them, it was his
Mhm.
story. But yeah, um, they still had those connections where, and then Sylvester Stallone, he didn't see a place for himself in this movie either. And he felt it was a dark movie, which is odd because this was not, Creed 3 was not dark. Um, which gives you perspective, again, how people see things, right? Because I didn't see Creed 3 as a dark film. Um,
Mm-mm. I have 2 dark films, and Creed was not dark to me.
so, but yeah. Um, so if you're joining us, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. The show's not over yet. I was just saying thank you. I was showing my appreciation. Uh, but let's transition because we're gonna continue part 2 of I didn't know what I didn't know, and it's basically for the beginner filmmaker. Not just a beginner though, because sometimes we made our second or third film and we still don't know what we didn't know, right? So I won't just lock it down to that. Good morning,
Well, I
Tone.
kind of, hey, Tony, congratulations on your deal and all the great things happening. Congratulations. Um, what we talked about, I don't think we were clicked on live when we were talking about earlier about the autograph. I mean, the pictures. Were we live when we were talking about that?
I don't know. I think we kind of were, but we didn't get detailed. But you're talking about the
Okay.
yeah. We were live. We were live.
We
We were
were live
talking
when we
about
talked
going
about
to the
taking the
film
pictures.
festivals and taking pictures because I have pictures from the different film festivals of walking when I was walking the red carpet and stuff and getting interviewed for the festivals for my first film. Like that was
Okay,
cool
now
stuff.
yes, that is cool. But the flip side, what we were talking about earlier, is the actors, how the actors and people really don't know writers. So interesting enough, I've been to several red carpets um, or plays and stuff where my name was on the program, but people didn't know that, unless it was announced
Mm-hmm.
at the end and they bring you up, that type of thing, people don't know who you are. So, like, I'm standing with the actors, and the people are like, hey, can you take a picture of us? For me to take a
Mm-hmm.
picture of them with the actors. And so it's kind of funny because, I watched something South by Southwest put out years ago, and it was like, do you know who the writers are? And they were like, of this film, and they said, what's your favorite film? And they're like, such and such, and they're like, well, who's the writer? They're like, what do you mean? They're like, well, what do you remember about it? I remember the actors, and they named the actors, and they said, do you know who the writer is? And they said, no. And some people were like, I didn't even know that they wrote scripts. I thought they just got on screen and act. Like somebody actually said that.
Really?
So it's
Really?
I wish I could find it, guys. It was but it was funny, but it was enlightening and funny at the same time. But they were like, because people know actors. When they're watching that movie, they're not watching to see who wrote this. Like, unless you're in the industry, all I
But
want to know is who's in it.
but that's kind of the same with music for a long time. Most
Hmm.
people didn't care
Oh
who wrote
yeah,
the song. A lot of people would think the artist wrote the song, right?
yep,
And unless the only time the writer is really noticed is if the writer is both the writer director or the writer producer type of
yep,
deal, like you know who Christopher Nolan is, right?
right,
You know who Spike Lee is because they direct and write their scripts. um you know who Tyler Perry is because he produces, directs, and writes the scripts. So you can recognize those people, but sometimes people don't even know who directors are. But when I first did my first film, um, good morning, Raynetta.
hey
When I did my
Renata.
first film, my conversations to my actors were, which is interesting. I said, nobody's gonna know me. They're gonna know you. So if you don't bring it on the screen, no one goes, that film was they may say the film was poorly written, but Michael Melvin will never be attacked for it. But if it's poorly acted and it's a good story, because I've heard people say that's a good story, but the actors didn't bring it. Da da da. They could have,
Yep,
man. They should have got somebody else to act. That I think they could have did better if they did this person. I've heard those conversations a lot more because a good story is a good story, right? I mean, come on.
exactly.
We the truth is, and we all know this, that it's wrapping paper. Story is wrapping paper. It's not. There's not too many unique standout stories, and even when they do pop up, they're rarely. You find one or two a year, where thousands of films that are very similar are always done, but it's how those stories
Hmm.
are told. It's like I tell people it's interesting, but what the truth is, and this is why I teach my students, a good storyteller and a bad storyteller is the difference of a film. You can
Mm.
give two people the same script and tell them to make this movie. They determine what genre it'll be. It'll be a comedy for one. It'll be a love story for another. It could be a thriller or horror for another person. And it could be the same story,
Yep.
and it's about how you tell the story. So that's where the director really comes in, and then the actors, because the director is getting the actors to make that picture make sense to the audience.
Hmm.
And if you don't have a
Definitely
good
agree.
director or the actors don't trust the director's direction, they make mistakes. Or if the director isn't listening, or I mean, either way, there's a lot of variables to make a story bad, but it can be a good
Hmm.
story on paper. Now, we've seen bad stories on paper. And again, all this is subjective, right? Because some movies that I enjoyed as a kid, I see totally different now as an adult. And then
Right.
some movies I saw as a kid and I liked them, I now appreciate more as an adult because there were things I wouldn't understand as a child that I did when I saw them as an adult. So there's those very nuances, but the truth be told, at the end of the day, it's about being a good storyteller. You know, how well do you tell a
Absolutely.
story? And people often forget the storyteller, right? They're like, yeah, this character,
Yes.
because they identify with the characters. So that's what it comes down to. What's up? What's up? What's up? All right, so hopefully, okay, my thing is now connected. There it is. Boom. See, my mouse is now connected. It is so interesting now that the director can be considered a star now. I was at an event last night, and that was a constant conversation. That's what Darrell shared. And
Oh,
then,
wow.
so um, you're right, because I'd love to reboot A Thousand Words and The Cobbler. Oh, The Cobbler is a good movie. Two
The
great
cobbler.
concepts I'd love to play with. I like The Thousand Words. I don't know why some people didn't like it. I thought Eddie Murphy did a really good job, and but
It's a spiritual
it
movie.
wasn't typical of Eddie Murphy. Neither was Mr. Church, right? And so people couldn't see that because they were looking for a haha comedian Eddie Murphy and story, where these were very deep spiritual meaning films, right?
Hmm.
It's like Imagine That. I actually really like the movie Imagine That with Eddie Murphy, right? But some people like, you know, I'm just like, it's all subjective. But yeah, A Thousand Words was really good. But The Cobbler with Adam Sandler, when he was making the shoes, and in the what happened, we're not making them, but he was fixing people's shoes, and he could become them when he put their shoes on. Like
Oh,
that,
wow.
yeah, that is a great movie. I hip a lot of people onto that. Um,
I'll have to check that one out. The cobbler.
yeah.
Yeah, A Thousand Words was so spiritual. I was like, this is a faith-based movie. Like when I was watching it, you're just watching it to enjoy it. But I was like, wait a minute. This is definitely a faith-based movie. So many movies. I read an article one time where they talked about how they fly all these pastors in when they make movies.
Hmm.
They fly pastors in and they do a test screening with pastors
Mm.
to make sure there's some. I don't know. Obviously, they're trying to make sure there's some element there because, or they wouldn't fly them all in. But I read that article and it was so interesting. I was like, but so that was interesting. But things you did. If I didn't know what is our topic? I didn't know
What I
what
didn't
I know
know.
now. I
Until
didn't know what I didn't
you
know.
know. Yeah.
Um, and one of the things I was telling, I have been saying all week, because of this set I was on one time, I said everyone with a budget and a director does
Hmm.
not know what they're doing. And I
Right.
took that for granted until this last set I was on. I took it for granted that they had a budget, they had producers and everything. And when I tell you, I was like, because I'm so used to it over the 22 years I've been in this industry, I had never seen someone with a budget and a director and no plan and no pre-production, everything laid out like it needed to be. And there was a financial situation where the bank account was frozen, but there was still the planning that wasn't done. And it reflected soon as we got to production. And of course, a lot of fingers were pointed. But the point is, especially when you're at the head of a movie, if you're a director, a producer, or anything, being able to find a way to solidify those funds and have the schedule and make sure what you're walking into is laid out.
Hmm.
And so I have to put that in this category because, like I said, in 22 years, I had never seen this happen before. everything was always laid out before when I'm hired on a set, or when, when I've been
Hmm.
hired on a set. And dealing with one of the things I really wanted to talk about was location. You know, didn't know till you know what you didn't know. And
Right.
locations, I literally have a list of about like this dealing with locations, because one of the main things is, no matter, I mean, well, we can talk about a lot of things, of course, like, and like I know you have a lot with locations in regards to negotiating stuff, so definitely chime in on that. But the part I'm going to talk about,
Tweak
the few I'm,
your mic is on your headphones, right?
yes.
Tweak them just a
Is it
little bit.
clamping?
There we go.
Is it,
Yeah, much clearer.
okay, it's here to get my earrings probably.
Oh, no, it wasn't clank. It
Okay.
wasn't clicking, but you were getting muffled, and now it's like clear. All right, there we go.
And then my morning voice on Saturday morning, every Saturday. But anyway, so locations, a few of the main things about locations. And like I said, Michael will have stuff about the negotiations and the paperwork and but a few things about I mean about the locations is, one, I don't care if you're there for 10 minutes.
Hmm.
Make sure you have a bathroom access. Period. And it doesn't seem like a big deal when you think you're going to run and shoot something for an hour, until there's a virus on set or someone needs to use the restroom and you have to drive them to the nearest McDonald's or whatever to go
Hmm.
to the restroom, and you can't, and it's your DP. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter. Make sure you have restroom access. The second thing that I will talk is the crowd control. You have to make sure that if you do rent a location, that you have crowd control. You cannot wait until you get on location and think you're going to control a crowd when people are coming in and the business is actually open and people are pay customers, and you can just quiet
Oh.
them down, and you can, because it was a situation where these people thought they were going to shoot dialogue in a strip club on a Friday night in Atlanta. I was like, how are we going to hold actors, set up crafty, keep the equipment safe, and shoot dialogue, which was number
Hmm.
one. And it was like, oh, I was like, oh, they must have a plan, which they didn't. But I mentioned that because you have to make sure you have crowd control. When I went to talk to locations, I'm asking about, they were like, do you have to shut down? Well, yeah, I do need it because, but I have been in establishments where the patrons are really, really give grace, but
Hmm.
you have to make sure you can have and maintain that crowd control. And the third thing I'll touch on is the atmosphere. If you're on a noisy street or private airports, if you get a location near a private airport, at night they have planes coming in all night long. Literally,
Hmm.
I used to work next to a private airport, and then there was a one set I was on. We shot next to one, and every 35 seconds a plane was landing at a private airport. And so you have to think about those things. Think about the crowd control and the noise control on the outside. Is the neighborhood noisy? Is everybody bumping their music? Coming through the parking lot or coming
Right.
down the street.
I
So
think.
it's things that you have to check.
Yeah, I think
Like I said, I have a
the.
long list, but I know Michael, you can add a lot to that as well.
Yeah, I think one, when you're going to shoot wherever you're going to film at, go there, and at the time you're planning to film, and the days you're planning to film, sit, sit in your car, see what happens. It's like filming in a neighborhood at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, between 5 and 6, or let's say 4 and 6, right? Is that a good idea? Depends. If there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood, they're all coming from school. So you're going to have a lot of kid
Mhm.
noise. If a lot of people live there, there are a lot of cars, they're going to be coming home from work. If most people come home from work around that time, right? So you're going to deal with traffic. Uh, you're going there's just certain aspects you don't think about. I know Mike L. Jackson, he's been on the show. We were filming for him on a set for one of his shorts, and I was a camera person, B cam, and big monstrous camera, big red cam. But we were shooting from 5 in the evening to 5 in the morning.
Mhm.
Well, the scenes were all happening at night, and when we were shooting outside, the trains were coming because he was by a train area, and as every not even every 5 minutes, every minute or two, a train was coming through. Like you heard them every few minutes, just boom, boom. They're like, dang. And we had to stop. The
And the
sound
sound guy
person,
does this. The sound guy
yeah.
does this as soon as it's coming. Like he takes his
Yeah.
headphone and puts his back.
And
Like,
but the sound guy actually, I think his sound guy actually turned the volume down or something because he said the sound guy ended up recording the volume too low for them to even use the audio for the film. So they had to reshoot the whole thing. I ended up moving to Maryland when they had to reshoot because he kept
shut.
asking me. He was like, "When are you coming to Texas, man? I want you a set." I was like, "I won't be." Right now he's working on a feature film. Um,
Oh wow. Yay.
but yeah, and so it's interesting because again, you got to sit at locations. You're going to shoot at somebody's house. You want to know what time of day, when, how often cars are coming back and forth, right? Um, there's so many aspects to that. I negotiate locations based on the people I know who can get me stuff. Like I know people who are in the different types of industries, other industries, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I got you." I have a friend, Leonard comes on the show. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't come on the actual show. He comes and listens, and he had an office in another part of Maryland, and we drive out to his office and shoot in his office. His dad had an office they use for their distribution company for their alcohol distribution company and stuff. And he allowed us to shoot in his office on their floor. So we had those relationships. I mean, we have them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then there's another friend who lets me use his townhouse from time to time to film in, and then I had and he hit me with people who let me have a gym he goes to that it's an independent gym, so they let me film in
Oh
there.
wow.
Restaurants. When I was younger, my parents my so what I try to get filmmakers to do is what my parents taught me: build
Mm-hmm.
relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
You build and cultivate relationships, and you don't call people just when you need them. You call them to see how they're doing and what you could ever help them with, things like that. But we cultivated relationships. People would come to our house for dinner. They became family, and because of that, when an opportunity opened up, like if I was working on something, we were talking. They're like, "Well, come by the restaurant. I'll let you film there. At midnight when we close." That's when you film at the restaurant. Anyway, you don't film while people are there. You go when they're closed or closing, and they give you some time to film. Because it's still, if it's a night scene at 12:30 or 1 o'clock at night, it's still night. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's still night, so it's a night scene. So you don't have to have people there. Um, and the only people that should be there are the extras you bring in because you trained them in what you want them to do when they're in the background. Um, so there's a beautiful thing to that, right? But it's always about cultivating relationships. If you don't have any relationships, if you don't do for other people, if you're selfish, if you're only trying to, you won't get nothing. Simple. Or people feel like, oh, you're trying to use me. Okay. But it has sometimes it's beneficial. We also shot a commercial and put it on our web series for the place locations we use their businesses.
Mm-hmm. That
Right.
was really good.
So we negotiated that because why would I use? We had a cafe, um, black owned, and I love helping black owned businesses. I mean, I love helping independent business, but I love helping black owned businesses. So we filmed there. We told people where we were. I showed it. I linked the page on the show's page. We went and Patreon. We bought stuff from there. Like we didn't want nothing for free. We'll buy the food that you have, stuff like that. We told people to go there to eat, things like that. Um, so that's what I'm very big on, right? Because you cultivate a relationship, and we didn't. Some of these places we did not have to pay a dime to use. They signed the paperwork. I don't start shooting till the paperwork is signed. By the way, that's for actors. That's for locations. The camera does not
Yes.
film until they've signed.
That's good.
They're like, oh, we'll sign it. No, I need you to sign this right now, or I need that person to do it digitally and send it on back to me. Figure it out. But I cannot roll until the paperwork is signed. We keep a notebook. I have notebooks of every project. So, which is funny, we're doing a
Mm-hmm.
planner now, right? I have a notebook for every
Yes.
project, and inside the notebook are all my contracts, my location releases, my
That's
actor
good.
releases, music, everything. They're all in there, right? Um, and but on the film side, the only reason I know that is my mother had a business, and prior to me doing films, I had another business doing publishing and then music before that, right? So everything's contractual. It's all about contracts to us. We write a proposal, you sign a proposal, send it back. Usually my proposals come with a check. Like the check solidifies it. Because the other thing is, once you send that check back, because it's in the contract, you must send a check. That also says you agree to the contract. Because why would you send me the check?
Exactly.
Or why would I say? You see what I'm saying? And um, so you can't go, oh, because the judge would be like, well, why'd you pay for it then? So you did agree to the
Absolutely.
contract, So it upholds people to stuff too. Um, I also learned when you don't have contracts, people try to change the contract. Or if you have a contract, don't let people put off signing a contract and then you already have them doing the work because they'll hold work for ransom,
Mm,
right? And you don't want people holding your work for ransom.
mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you'll have the thing, but you can't use it until they sign the contract. And they go, oh, well, I want to change this. We're like, it's not what we agreed to in the first place. Oh, well, the work is done. And I realize, I don't care what you realize after the fact, you made an agreement. You always uphold your end of the bargain. So,
Ooh, keep your word,
yeah.
baby.
So,
Mm, mm,
what I
mm.
do, sign a contract first. That way we can work through it and I get what I need, you get what you need. Boom. Um, because too many people wait till after the fact or wait when they really need somebody to sign a contract. And I learned even in the business world, let's just say you shot some stuff like a movie and you got people in the background, you need to get all of them sign a contract. Normally people will even act for free, but now you need them to sign the contract. And I'm not talking about your actors, I'm talking about background people, extras, or people that were on set. You didn't have them sign anything. So you either got to figure out how to remove them out of your work, which technology is starting to get there, but or you can't use that shot, which could mess up everything done or make you go back. Remember, you get because you're locking your film down. Once you lock that film down, it's not what you want to start messing with stuff, especially if you've had sound design and all these. You don't want to start messing up stuff,
Yes.
right? But people go, "Oh, I needed them to sign the contract. Now they won't. I got the scene. I can't use it. Yeah, you can't sell it. Can't nothing until they fill that out." And they
And you
go,
don't want to
"Oh, you
wait
know
till
what?
the
I need a
last minute
thousand
for this.
dollars, huh?"
No, I just said you don't want to wait till the last minute because
Yeah,
what you didn't know that you didn't know, and literally plain, like you said, all of a sudden the film is locked down and they're like, oh, I need $1,000. Or you're in the middle of a scene at night next to, and the planes are flying in or the trains are coming in. That
right.
is not the time to find out, to know what you didn't know, because it's time and money being wasted. And then you got to scrap the whole end of that day and come back and do a reshoot day, which costs more money. So it's a
So,
lot of stuff that will say that all this stuff, what you didn't know that you know didn't know, this saves you money on the back end. It saves you so much money, so much time, so much frustration because, we're giving you guys this stuff from experience. And I know a lot of you are experienced too. And so you've experienced a lot of stuff. So put in the chat if there's some other stuff that you didn't know that you did, what you didn't know, put that in the chat too, because we're all a community here to help each other. Interdependent filmmaking in
mm,
regards to helping, it's a, hey, if it's a pothole right there, I'm going to tell you there's a pothole
right.
and it's big and it's going to tear up the bottom of your car and bust two tires out. Please don't. Please. The pothole is right there. As soon as you
And
pass the stop sign.
that's what you got to think about, right? So with locations, you definitely got to sit there. Um, take pictures of your locations,
Hmm.
interior, exterior. Take pictures. Have a checklist of the things you need at that location. You get the planner, it has a checklist in there, but have a checklist so that you're going through those sections. Yes, having a bathroom is important, that people have access to. Um, where can people park? If you don't have a
Parking,
lot of parking, then people need to meet somewhere and they drive over.
shuttle over. Yep,
Yeah.
that's one of the things on the list. Like I said, that location list about the parking. But I was going to also say something about oh, when he said create a checklist, it doesn't matter which position you're in, you need a checklist. As a PA, when I would go on set, I have the checklist. I have the cooler. I have a toaster. I have the kettle in case somebody wants hot tea, I can make hot water. So there were
Mm-hmm.
particular things from my house. So then I have the checklist. I know first day of production, I need, or every day, I need plasticware, I need paper plates, I need that. Like whatever your position is, you still have a checklist.
Yeah. You get crates. What do you need to buy to put stuff in? Right. Like I said last show, I have a audio bag. It's a black bag. Everything in there deals with audio. I have
Hmm.
my camera stuff, my gaffers stuff, gaffer tapes, um, clothespins, everything I need, screwdrivers, all that stuff, toolkits, because you'll need them on set for something. You just don't know. And it's better to have it and not need it than to not have need it and then need it and you don't have it. You have a
Absolutely.
checklist for your audio equipment. Um, Checklist for your camera stuff. Do you have enough SD, CF cards, hard drives, things like that? Do you have computers? Um, do you have people? Checklist for people. Do you have your DP? Do you have your camera operator, or is DP is the camera operator? Maybe you make sure you get a second camera operator. Are you using two cameras, three cameras? Do you have lenses? What lenses are you using? Um, Darrell said he didn't know. Um, he said, I didn't know I needed a production manager until now. I tried to, I'm tired of sending emails. Yeah. Somebody
Your
who's good
production
at that.
coordinator. Yeah.
Yeah. You want people who are good at what they do, because the planning process of filmmaking is one of the most tedious processes. The production is work, but it goes smoother because of the planning, right? It doesn't go perfect, but it goes smoother.
Yes.
Then post production, that doesn't require too many people, depending, but you got to have the people that know what they're doing, right? And that's all based on your production and your planning. Because who has the extra hard drive in case the one the editor is using crashes? And guess what? I won't give them. I will not give you the extra hard drive. I'll go buy another hard drive and transfer all the work over to that drive. And that way we have a backup drive. But to me, the editor should have a backup drive while they're editing themselves, because a client's drive could crash or whatever. So if you are the editor, you should have a hard drive that can hold all the footage and hold it for the time you're editing until you're done. And once you're done with the project, you dump it on a drive that you can access later, or you put all the files and plugins and all that stuff that you use in that project on
Hmm.
that other drive, and you give it back to the producer and they make a copy of that to have it, so when they come back to you again or whichever, you know what to do, right? You're logging your shots. There's so many aspects to that. Um, but again, losing footage is like the hardest thing, because when you lost some stuff, you're like, and you can't get it back.
Oh,
There's nothing you can do.
I think I would just fall out.
You just
Just
got to reshoot,
blam, just hit the floor.
and it's all
Especially if it's
time
like a
consuming.
big scene. If it's a
Mm-hmm.
big scene, like the club scene, like we literally shot, I was on a set, we shot like a full engagement party. They didn't have hard drives the first day of shooting. And I was like,
Mm.
course, that's on your on in the planner. Of course, that's on my checklist for consulting. I'm like, they did not have hard drives the first day of shooting, uh, and so we shot this scene with all this stuff and these decorations and everything, and I was just like, you guys don't have a hard drive to download this? Like, y'all don't, how are you gonna, what happens if we lose? I was like, oh my God, this is too much to recreate, especially with continuity and everything. If we have to recreate that footage, I was just like it shocked, like it hit me because it was such a big scene. I've been on another set. It's not the first set I've been on where they didn't have hard drives right in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this wasn't the DP. That y'all didn't talk about like DIT. Y'all didn't talk about hard drives like in the, okay. Interesting enough, because like I said, you assume we get on the set, these people have it all together because they were able to get a budget and a director and
Right.
producers, and that's
And
not it's not necessarily true.
and here's the thing, because I've talked to a lot of filmmakers, and they leave a lot of stuff up to the other people. And so I'm going to say this: um, I've talked to people who they had a DP, and the DP kept the footage. They didn't have a copy of the
Mm,
footage. I was like, why don't you have a copy of the footage? It's your film. The first thing you should get that night. Before the DP leaves, you grab their drive, their card or whatever, and you transfer it to your hard drive. But I didn't know that exactly. But let me tell you, if I hire somebody to work for me, they don't leave me until I get what I need.
mm-hmm,
Okay. Um, so Tone says send footage through Google Drop app to editor. And we talked about that. There's things, but you got to. So here's the other thing you do want to be careful of with Dropbox, Google Drive. I think Frame.io is one of the best ones, and then of course Vimeo. Google Drive recompresses video footage.
mm-hmm,
Okay, so it takes what you put in there and it starts to convert it over. So it's not necessarily the same type of file that you uploaded in a sense. So we have to be careful of recompressions or compressing or anything changing of the footage. So that's why hard drives are good. There's other sites on a professional level, high end, that you can upload footage and it won't mess up your footage. It won't change it, the file type, the metadata that is built into your footage. It won't mess with it. Those can be slightly expensive, or especially for independent filmmakers or new people who have a very small budget, they don't budget it with those things in mind, right?
mm-hmm,
So there's various aspects you have to look at, and you got to know what's going to work for you. This is why that planning stage is important. It comes into play. You
mm-hmm,
got to know what your editor is going to edit on, right? Or what do you want your editor to edit on? Because somebody may come up and say, I want my editor to use Avid. Some of us are trained on Avid. I'm trained on Avid. I'm trained on Final Cut. I hate Premiere, but I do know how to use it. I haven't used DaVinci. I got to work on it. But there's a free version of DaVinci, so you can learn that. And a lot of people use it for color correcting and color correction and design and all that. So DaVinci's one of those things. For sound, people may use certain softwares, but if you're using Avid or anything else, a lot of people also use the music production software. My brain is like, um, there's audio editing software that Pro Tools. There we go. People use Pro Tools. People use Logic Pro, which is a final that can work with Final Cut with Apple, because this Logic Pro is an Apple software. So it also depends on your machine. We don't consider computers. You can't just, and I'm going to be very honest, because I hear people and they go, I got this computer, but it's not doing this, or this software doesn't work with it. Every computer isn't built the same, especially when it comes to Windows. All software may not run on a computer just because it has the similar stats to what it says. And I've known this because in the beginning I use Macs now. Mac is Mac. It's built the way it's built. Whatever software is going to run on a Mac is going to run on a Mac. There's no, unless when they run an update, and the software company hasn't run the update, then you be careful on updating it because your software may not work. Or there's
Mm-hmm.
certain tools you'll have to wait until they update the plugins and update the software to run with those operating systems. That's the only challenge with a Mac I have or ever had. With a PC, I've built computers. I used to build them. I built computers and I found software that worked. I bought a computer and the software wouldn't work. And I'm like, wait, I bought this. Why wouldn't it work? Sometimes it could be graphic card, the sound card, it can be the CPU itself, and it says it has these things, but it just doesn't work. Different manufacturers, different things. So I go for tried and true. I don't want you to be a Mac person if you don't have to. I know there's people who have PC computers and things run just fine, but you have to research the tools in which you're going to be using for, because again, you don't want it to run into those problems. You bought it. I remember a guy, we used to use Sony Vegas at the time. He bought a turnkey computer for like $5,000. At the time, I bought a Dell XPS gaming computer and I spent close to $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were the same speed, same everything. My editing software was working in my Dell and I could upgrade it. His turnkey, he had to ship back like 3 or 4 times, and it was supposed to be built to work with the software, and it wasn't working. So,
Wow.
but I will tell you, once I had to transition over to Mac because of my grad school program at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to use Adobe and Final Cut stuff, so it was required. And I just stuck with the Mac because I had to get trained on Final Cut and certified. So I'm a certified Final Cut editor. You just learn the software, you go through the tests and all that and whatever. It doesn't mean you can edit or not. Editing has other techniques built into it, but you understood the software in order to edit. Um, so I say this because a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
didn't know, and then you let somebody edit, and then you think, oh, they used Premiere, and you have a computer, and Premiere doesn't really run on your computer because you remember they got this 5K HD 5K everything, all this stuff, 4K 8K, all these things in their computer that runs. You don't have that because as a first time filmmaker, unless you're thinking about this, you're not thinking about this. You didn't go. You're probably gonna go to Best Buy and say, "What computer can I get?" Or a computer store. You know what I'm saying? You're not looking at, hey, I'm gonna go direct to a manufacturer. You're gonna go buy whatever Best Buy got or whatever computer store you go to,
Right. Right.
and it doesn't work that way. But a lot of people didn't know. They didn't know that. I mean, that's why I don't even mess with Adobe. Kinda, I have it. I can use it anytime I want. But because I do use Photoshop. But now you got Canva, so you don't have to have Photoshop as much anymore. There's this other tools now that are very competitive and cheaper. But the key is to learn the basics, the knowledge you need to know. That's the first thing you need to know
Mm-hmm.
is what you don't know is having knowledge, right? Um, so software is a big thing. That's the thing. Research your thing. Don't just buy a computer. Get around people, talk to people, ask questions. But here's the thing, and because I realized this about people. Hey, I want to make a movie. What kind of computer should I buy? And I tell them that's expensive. This is expensive. Making movies is not cheap.
Making
So
movies is not,
please
listen.
plan for
Making movies
this.
is not cheap, and guess what, guys? You gotta feed people and have snacks for them all day. Making movies is not cheap. So when the caterer asks you for money and the cafe asks you for money, it's not cheap.
Or you could
Every
cook
day you're gonna
yourself.
be putting out a lot of money.
I
No,
mean,
it's
I'm
too
just saying,
much.
what I'm saying is there's workarounds to some of those things that you can do, right? But you can't work around a computer. Like you can't
Right.
work around a camera. We don't build those things every day, all day. You can't work around those things. The workaround for a camera is hire a DP, then pay them, and that has a camera. Or lease a
Yes.
camera from one of the camera leasing companies. And it's cheaper to lease it for the week than it is for a couple of days. It's probably cheaper to lease it for in a month than it is for a week. The longer you
Mm-hmm.
have it, the cheaper it is. The reason I don't lease cameras is easy. People change settings. People damage equipment. All stuff happens. I can't. A leasing company ships the camera out. Takes some days. It's 1 or 2 days, depending on the company you're dealing with. If something goes wrong with the camera, you got to get it back to them. They got to get you another one. You're already working. So
Yep.
when I own my own equipment, I don't have that problem. Okay. I have insurance on my equipment. Whatever happens, the insurance will handle it. Boom, take it. I'll get another one the next day or two. But it still be mine. So I can keep, I don't have to rent it again and again and again either. And
Mm-hmm.
make if somebody changes it. I will say if you got to rent something, rent lenses for your cameras.
Right.
When I say lenses, I'm saying cinema lenses. There's a difference between a cinema lens and your photography lenses. T stops versus
Oh
f
yeah.
stops. But you got to know that.
Mm-mm.
Hopefully we get Jacoby back
Mm-hmm.
on. I'll let him talk about that. So I don't have to. So
Yeah. And that's the thing, guys. That's what we talk about when you're trying to do, like, once you grow in the business, there's a lot of things, like, Michael talks about, there's a lot of things he does on his own with the editing and the cameras and this and that. When you're growing in this business and you are making films, you are going to have to hire people who know what the heck they're doing. They're going to have the editing software. They're going to know how to edit. You may not know how to edit. I don't know how to edit, so I'm going to have somebody edit my movie. I don't shoot. I don't know cameras, but I know other stuff. So guess what? My DP, I got to make sure he's well versed on lenses and, cameras and the type of look I want and all that stuff. So when you guys, especially, of course, in the beginning, when you're like, I'm just going to shoot my film, I'm going to do everything myself, you have to understand this stuff takes time to learn and get. I always tell people, they were like, well, I want to be a director, script writer, script supervisor, and editor. And I'm like, so what are you going to start with? You have to start somewhere to build,
mhm.
start building. Like, you just can't, you're not going to learn all of that in one day. That stuff takes time to learn and grow with. We're not young. Like, I'm 50. Michael is, 21. He's a little younger than me, but
I'm not that young.
but
Don't even blame
but
me.
but this is stuff, you grow, and everybody else who's been in this business for a while, you can attest to that. You grow into each of these crafts. Michael just didn't start screenwriting and editing the same day. He learned that. You know what I
Actually,
mean? It's
I'll be real. The thing is, I wish I did this earlier than when I did it, but I took my first
Mhm,
screenwriting course in college, in community college. Um, I worked at the TV station at our college. Both colleges I
mhm,
went to, I worked at the TV stations. Um, I interned. So I have certain luxuries, right?
mhm.
That someone coming into this didn't have because I went to school for this stuff. Like
Right.
I went to school for broadcast management. So I went for the
Mhm.
business side of television and stuff. And but in that I had to learn production. We had to do the hands-on. Right. And I'm very
And that's
creative
good.
as a person. So because of that, my creativity lent itself to those abilities. I actually hated being in front of the camera, but my professors would make me get in front of the camera. I hate being in front of the camera. I wanted to be in the control booth. I wanted to be on camera. I had a professor Arungra at Bowie State. She had her talk show. She had us on as guests or as interviewers. And I hated it. But it's crazy. Cause I was like, why can't I go on the camera? Man, I want to learn the camera. But I could use the camera. I started helping people in my class edit their work, their short films and stuff. Going
Mhm.
to this is when we had AB decks. He had the main deck and we were transferring foot. This is when we had the decks. Now, crazy thing is, I can say this now because I graduated. While my counterparts in college were editing on the decks, and I knew how to do it because I also had to do it at my internship. I learned Media 100 because of a friend of mine who worked at Gannett in Virginia. So when I shot my short films, we transferred them digitally and edited them digitally and put them back out on the tape. So I was ahead of my classmates because my work was edited digitally. Then when I got to
Right.
my internship, she was like, Oh, I'm just going to train you on Avid. I still had to use the decks because when I edit commercials into the movies, I was like that guy. You know how you people like, well, how does the commercial get into the movie in the middle and da da da? I was the guy editing that stuff,
Oh wow.
logging it and editing. Oh my goodness, like I did that stuff. It was cool, but it was a crazy part. It's so funny. One of my students asked me, "What is one of my biggest regrets?" I don't have any regrets, but I will say I made a bad choice when I could have made a better choice. Because I made a choice about money when I was younger. It's about survival.
Mm-hmm.
My first job would have been as a scriptwriter. After my internship, she said, "Hey, I want to hire you as a scriptwriter. You work here at the TV station and you write scripts because your scripts are good." It's like, oh, like, how much is it?
Did you say paid? Exactly. Did
Yeah,
you say
pay,
paid?
but no. When she said $8.50 an hour, I said, "Oh, I didn't go to college for $8.50." You can't just drop that. But you gotta remember that again. Early years. You see what I'm saying? It's early years. That's like over 20 years ago. So like, way over 20 years ago. So $8.50 is actually minimum wage was $5. It's $5.25. So you're like $8.50 is actually doing good, but it's not survival for me. But I had access to a TV station. I had access to equipment. I had access to higher education. I had access. I didn't think of what I had access to if I went ahead and took the job.
Right.
BET, went interviewed at BET, 20,000 a year. 20,000 a year, that ain't nothing. Camera, nah, I can't do that. And it was freelance, so when it was available, they called you. Now I have friends who worked at BET who for years they produced the show Hits. They produced 106 in Park. So I know these people. So like, but I was like, that's not enough. What'd I do? I went into teaching because that paid me 30,000 plus healthcare plus da da da, and now that helps. But what did I do? I never left film. I never left video production. I made short films. I produced videos for other people. I went into the freelance aspect because I knew my skill set and I practiced and read every day. I have a library, video, books, everything, a library of film production. And that's what I get on people about is you say you want to do this, but have you invested in it? I went to trainings. Even when I wasn't in school, I went to Sony, flew to Florida for a week, paid for a hotel to be trained in software for editing and be certified as a professional. My pocket, my money. You see what I'm saying? So like went to a seminar for red cameras. Not cheap, not totally expensive, but not cheap either. For a whole weekend, stayed in a hotel. The guy ran us through 2 days. This is the red camera. This is how it works. This is da da da. Bought a book on the red camera. I don't even own a red camera. Never have. But I've used them for other people. It's an investment. And well, how can I trust you with equipment and put you in a place? And I didn't know. Like I said, what I had to learn is you have to be aware of everything if you're going to do it. And I thought I was going to be a DP. That was it. Like I love being behind camera. I enjoy, but here I am. I direct, I write. But hell, I said this crazy part is I can write, but TK, who do I hire to write? Because that's what you do every day. So I was like, nah, I'll defer to you. TK said, why don't you just write? I was like, nah, I'll go ahead and I know what I want. Like, boom, here, But it's
okay.
It's okay. It's better. And you know what? Yes, I'm spending money, but you know what? By me paying TK to do it, and that's what she do day in, day out anyway, she knocks him out in a good time. I can't tell you how long or how short, because It's different for everybody. But she's good.
Thank you.
She's good. Uh,
Thank you.
but and so that saves me time because during that time I can be planning, right? Or I could be coming up with the next story. I mean, the way my brain works, and that's what, again, the technical stuff. I got more involved in the technical stuff because I realized something. It's the technical things that hold us back from making a movie. That's just my personal view. And the reason I say this is because the guy who has a camera and has microphones, they can go make a movie anytime they want. Excuse me. They can. Lights. If you got cameras, lights, and mics, who can stop you from making a movie?
Cameras, lights, and mics.
That should be a book. Cameras, lights, and mics. Because who can stop you from making a movie? But when you have no equipment and you just have a script, you got to wait for somebody to say, "Oh yeah, you can make this," or "Oh yeah, we want this." Da da da. And I learned that early on. It's nothing against people who write scripts, because here's the thing: the person with the cameras, lights, and mics, guess who they got to go to when they need a movie to make? So there's your partnerships.
Gotta have the content. Yeah.
There's your relationships. Yep. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the night, when we talk about, and I'm asking this for myself, but also I know it benefit everybody else, other people as well. When you talk about backing up the footage on a hard drive, so at the end of the night, so once they give the card to the DIT person,
right? So
they give the card to the DIP person, and they're dropping footage on set. They're dropping the footage for the editor on set. Well, in some cases, like my case, I'll have the DIT person and the editor be the same person. So at the end of the night, when they give that last card and we're cleaning up to leave, what is that? It's showing
my hard drive.
Okay, right, your hard drive. So when they're cleaning up to leave, like literally when they're dumping that last card, they're dumping the footage off of that last card to give it back at the end of the night. We're sitting there waiting on them for another 30 minutes or so after shooting all day. When are they supposed to back up the footage for you at the same time? So at the same time they're dropping it, they're moving it to a different file. How does that work?
Okay, so here's what I did. For me, because I'm usually director or producer, I have a hard drive, at least 2 on set, and we back up everything to the drive. So after every time we film a scene, the whole scene, we take the card, we give you a different card, go out, transfer the footage. While the other card is being shot, that other scene can be being filmed. So now we put it on a hard drive. If there's enough time, I've literally sat while they were shooting in a bedroom, I was in a bathroom with the computer, transferring the footage, sitting at my chair and putting the footage from the previous scene we just shot. That while the actors are changing clothes and everything. And
so you do it per scene. You switch the cards out per scene. So at the end of the night,
I used to do it per night. I used to do it per night. Now I do it per scene. You know why I do it per scene? So there was this one perfect scene that I had that the drive overheated, and I'll never have that scene again. And the reason why, because I was in the middle of getting ready to shoot another scene, and I had 15, 20 minutes to back that up before the other scene, while the actors change clothes and everything. I would have still had the footage. We had to wait another day to shoot that scene, and it didn't come out as nice as well as the other one was. And here's the thing, because my emotions were there, my frustration of losing it, pictures, everything. When I'm filming, I start taking pictures, right? We had a DSLR camera we shot with. I took pictures. I shot the footage. So I backed all that up. If I know what I know, I would have backed that thing up so quick. If it failed, I wouldn't have lost that, because I had to use a different card. And I always have extra cards, so that's not a problem. I swapped it out, but I lost what I did. So I learned very quickly. Okay, here's the deal. You got to be careful. And so when you're done with a scene, transfer the scene.
That way, so they dump it. The editor dumps it for himself. And then
if the editor's there, you don't have to have the editor there. You can have a person. I mean, you can have the editor there if you want, but
Yeah.
what I want 2 drives. So if there's an editor drive, I want you to put it on my drive and transfer it from my drive to your editing drive. And at the end of the night, I get my
Oh,
drive. Right.
okay, gotcha. That's what I was asking. Yeah, because my editor person is the DI. My editor is actually the
So
DIT.
so Tone said, this is what Tone said, and this is where I have to share with Tone. She says, Michael, back up, but keep the SD cards as well. No. And this is why I'm going to say yes and no. I'm not going to say totally no. But here's the why.
Mm-hmm.
The SD card is the film on. I erased that. Once I put it on 2 different drives, I'm gonna have a 3rd drive when I get home, and I'm backed it up from that drive on there too. This is, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, keep your footage. Drives fail. SD cards fail. I have a bunch of SD cards. They're only for filming. I will grab all my footage. If I do, like some cameras have 2 SD card slots or CF
Mm-hmm.
slots. Some are for your raw footage for the 4K or 8K or 6K. The other is for proxy. I download the proxy and that footage and I transfer it over. I wipe the drive SD cards. While I check the footage, I wipe the drives, and you can go in and you start logging. You start logging your footage, name it, start naming it based on the scene, the shot, and everything, and you log it on
Mm-hmm.
paper or digitally on a document. Once you've done that, yeah, no problem. The SD card is like a tape. I'm going to use it over, or may end up using over, but the SD cards, I'm going to reformat them each time. People do it with the red cameras because they only hold. Now, the red cams in the back when I started, they only held about 15 to 20 minutes worth of footage.
Oh.
So I was working with Mike. We had to swap out the thing. Here's what happened. We sent the drive from the red cam to the guy. He did not, he was busy transferring the other drive. He took it out, he sent back, but instead of sending back the correct drive that he had just finished, he sent back the drive we sent him. This is also why you label your drives, your hard drives, your tapes, right? You go 1, 2, 3, and you, so when I shoot slot one, I mean, camera A, camera B, card 1, card 2, card 3, and I say what camera it is, right?
Okay.
So camera A, card 1, camera B, card 1. Uh, if you're using one camera, then it's just camera A, card 1, 2, 3, card, camera. So you do it like that. When you have and this is what I say to people, practice the behavior, because the problems come when you don't have a consistent um, train of how you do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why the checklist is important. That's why teaching your people how you want it done is important. Prior to, practice with them. That's why I like doing short films, because if they practice it on a short film, you make a mistake on a short film, I can get through it, but you know, um, well, okay. So Tone said the reason she doesn't erase the SD cards, she has had them. The hard drive is burned out, so I keep both until it's fully edited. So okay, so here's why I swap out SD cards for the
Mm-hmm.
projects. I have more than one drive, so if one drive, all my drives can't burn out. Like if I buy 4 drives for a project, all 4. I mean, that's an anomaly
Mm-hmm.
that 4 drives are going to burn out. Um, so I have my main drive. Now I'm an editor in a lot of cases, so I edit too. But I have my editing drive, I have my main drive, I have a backup drive, and then I have a larger drive that I can back everything up to. Right? The large drive is like a 12 terabyte drive. Now we're dealing with 4K and stuff, so you're going to get larger and larger. And like I said, that's where it becomes pricey though, right? But these drives, non SSD drives, they're cheap. They're cheap now, is what I'm saying. So they'll run you about, you can get a 4 terabyte one of these for like, I don't know, 100, not even $100.
And you have to have how many terabytes do you recommend to have on set for a movie?
Depends on the
I was told
project, but
40. I was told 40
yeah, you're dealing with
is like a
4K,
big
you're dealing
number.
with raw footage, you're doing everything.
Hmm.
So it depends on the cameras you're using. It depends on there's so many factors to that, but you have that's why it's understanding
Gotcha.
the equipment, right? Um, so that's why you can carry a big drive. So um
Hmm.
I wish I had the big drives. I could show you.
I was thinking
Because I
two,
have
like
one not
maybe two
used.
20 gig.
Yeah, you can take there's 10, 12 gigabyte drives now. But see, you have a larger budget. So because you have a larger budget,
Hmm.
you're gonna buy portable drives and then you're gonna have a desk drive. You can go put all your stuff on your desk drive, and then your portable drives you can hand out to your editor and they can do what they're gonna do. And you have your desk drive and you probably have another backup. And then you'll just do your thing. When the movie's done, you'll back everything up on 2 drives, the final edit that's locked down, everything, and the raw footage and all that, and onto 2 different drives. You can clean off the other drives because now your film is done. It's done. It's like distribution or whatever you're gonna do with it.
Hmm.
Um, and that's today, right? But you got to know, you got to check your drives every couple things. Like when I used to do stuff for clients, I would put in their budget to buy drives.
Hmm.
And then I also put in a storage cost. So, like, let's say I shot something for a client 2 years later. That, hey, Michael, remember that thing? Yeah, I got it. I specifically got your drive. Like, it's in a safe. Here it is. Boom. It's your name is labeled on it. All this stuff is on there.
Gotcha.
Some companies want other people to edit their stuff, and you're just getting them the raw footage. That means you're hired as a contractor or whatever it is they're depending on. So there's different factors to that. But as independents, that's what we have to be aware of. And I don't, I just don't leave it to the other guy. Like I can't, I've filmed with other people and they use their camera. I'm like, yo, slide me that. What kind of card you're using? And I have all the converters for those different cards, a CF card, SD card. I got those conversions. So I can
Hmm.
plug it up to my computer, slide that card in, transfer it to my hard drive while they're shooting the next thing. And here you go. Here's your thing back. That's why, Tony, if I'm using somebody else's equipment, they're filming, then I can't have the SD cards. And also, here's the thing. If you're using a red cam, it's not an SD card. It's a mag card or it's a hard drive. So you got to transfer that to your stuff and give them back their stuff. If you're renting or
Hmm.
leasing that equipment. So there's that's why I said you got to know what you're doing with what so you can plan for what, that's why ask first thing, if you're working with a DP, ask them what camera or talk to them, what cameras are you going to use, right? You need to research those cameras, what is needed for those cameras, so you have it. Now, I've worked with
So
people.
if I hold on,
Go ahead.
pause. So if I hire a DP who's using a camera, I need to research the camera to
I
figure
tell people
out
on
what
the
he.
independent side, I say that because of this.
Mhm.
I've met people who said they gotten into it with their DP. See what happens? I
Mhm.
got into it with my DP. He or she won't come back on set. You need to keep filming. I operate one monkey, don't stop the show. So
Okay.
and so if you know what they were using, you can lease that camera. If you got it in your budget, you can buy that camera. If you have the cards, the other thing is I've worked with people like I knew a guy who's bringing his own camera. I said, bring your own camera, but I'm going to give you the SD cards. They're mine,
Mhm.
right? So before he left, guess what he had to take out of his camera? My SD cards
Absolutely.
and give them to me so I can but I can transfer during the whole thing. I still protect myself because I've seen it all happen. I've either been through it or watched it. And the worst part is to watch it and you can't do nothing about it. And let me tell you, people, The reality is this: for the equipment we use in film and video, film production and stuff, everything ain't at Best Buy. Radio Shack no longer exists. Amazon won't deliver everything right then and there the same day. So you have to be mindful and plan ahead of time and have contingencies. Because at any given point, anything can happen. I've heard DPs walk off set in the middle of shooting. That's their camera. Guess what? Let me pack up my stuff. That's their card. Guess what? Let me pack up my stuff. And if you shot some stuff and you haven't transferred it, guess what?
Right.
They can ransom your stuff. And yes, you might have paid them something, or maybe you haven't even paid them yet. Because I know some of y'all like to be like, well, let me pay you when you don't even put
On
a
the
down
back end.
payment down. Huh?
I said on the back end.
Yeah. Or let's partner. I've heard the partnership thing.
Ooh, that partnership thing.
Yeah. So you got to know. And then so Darrell says for Philly folks, there's a camera shop in the old city. They have everything. Yes. But what time do they close? See, that's that other contingency. Because we know camera shops. We know B&H's in New York. Adorama, New Jersey, I think. I think B&H moved to New Jersey, or their warehouse did. So you got to know your companies, right? And there's rental companies in DC. There's rental companies in Virginia. There's rental company in Silver Spring for camera equipment, stuff like that. I'm living in Maryland. So there's some locations, and then there's other companies you rent. They ship the stuff to you. And some of those are the cheaper, better companies because they have that one price no matter where you live. Where you live, they'd be trying to, if they don't have a lot of business, that's what most companies do that don't have consistent everyday business of rental. They bump the price up of renting. One, you're local, you need them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why budget's so important, right? I'm an owner. I own equipment. That's just me. I got lights, mics, cameras. But that's my choice because I never wanted somebody to tell me no, and I never wanted to wait on someone, and I never want somebody to get up in the middle of a set and walk off. Guess what? You can walk off, but guess what you don't walk off with? My equipment.
Not my stuff.
Yeah.
Need my stuff right here.
And that's why I look at the world like that. When my nephew wanted to go into music, I said, okay, you got any microphones? You got some studio equipment? You got a laptop that you can record your raps and stuff on? He goes, no. I said, so when a guy tells you can't come to a studio and you got a song in your head or you need to record, guess what? You waiting on someone else. You don't have to wait on people. So Tony, I want to share what Tony said. If you can't afford to buy right now, go to the pawn shop, put it in a layaway, and that's what I did when I got started. That depends on the equipment. So
yeah, it's a lot of I've called pawn shops and they had cameras, a lot of cameras.
Okay, so, I just want because I don't know too many high end cameras. If you got a high end camera, most cases the companies that lease them have them for sale too. But, and what I mean is high end, let me put it this way. We're talking about Blackmagic cameras, Canon, that's cinema cameras, not the photography ones. You know, I know a lot of people use DSLR cameras like the TI, all that. Those are HD. I want to be careful. I want to share this. We don't do HD anymore. And I'm going to tell you why. Everything's shot in 4K. When it's time to bump up, you got 4K is the standard at this point. HD is no longer the standard. HD standard left roughly 2018, 2017. Right? So now you could use HD camera. I'm not going to tell you can't. But if you're buying a camera now, you need to say 4K. If you're buying a camera to shoot your films on, you need to go mirrorless, not the regular DSLR reflective lenses, mirrorless. So now you're looking, if you're a Canon person, you're looking at an R5. You're looking at an R6, R7, or the R5C, which does both photography and video in 8K, but it only does C-Log 3 and C-Log 1. The logs are dealing with when you start doing your color correction, your color, all that stuff. But so that's the other thing, right? And that's if you're going into the camera space. There are cheap cameras like that will shoot in 4K that you can plug a mic to, and you're spending roughly $1,000 to $2,000, and you can make a movie with it. Sony cameras, Canon, I think Fiji has one, but you got a Red cam. Red has their cheap camera. It's the cost of that camera body for the Red is cheap. The rest of the stuff is expensive because you got to kit it out. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I like cameras that work out the box. That's where Jacoby and we bump heads because he still has his Canon cameras, but he bought a Red Komodo. Red Komodo is about the same cost as my Canon C7, C70, but his shoots in 6K, right? Mine shoots in 4K. We both now have RAW. He uses the same lenses I can use. He can use Canon batteries, but he has to buy those things. The camera doesn't come with them. So you're not just spending $5,000 something on this camera. You're spending 7 to 10 because you still got to buy the other stuff. If you don't have lenses, you got to start buying lenses. The reason I will tell any new filmmaker, RF lenses, you're either going to go RF with the new lenses. And so that's why you have to decide what company you're going to work with when it comes to your equipment. And what I mean by that is the manufacturer. If you go Canon, your Red cams can use Canon EF lenses, Canon RF lenses, or Canon cinema lenses, right? But iPhone's shooting 4K, Darrell. So Darrell says, he says, they're going to take this HD and like it until I can afford it. If people shoot Netflix films with iPhones, I'm good, but they're shooting on 4K. Like when TK and I and Lewis did my thesis film, we shot in 4K using Filmic Pro on the iPhone. That's what the actors all had, the same phone. I sent them the money for them to buy Filmic Pro and put it on their phones. We told them the settings, the f-stops, everything. We send them the microphones to plug to them. They had wireless mics and they knew how to use it. Now, because I'd worked with the actors, I trained them on how to put the mics on so the mics will never be seen because we've done that before, right? And they're used to it. So they know to put the tape on. I provided the tape for them, and it's surgical tape, and they put it on their chest, and they hide the mic. They put it in the silicone sleeve. They were taught and trained with all those things. You're going to see a lot of films that aren't 4K, but you got to remember the new standard is 4K at this point. I mean, every camera comes with 4K. If you're buying an old camera, you're outdating yourself. And here's the thing. It will cost you more money to upgrade if the equipment's already available. Because you're going back to buy something, and this is why I have to think in mindset. Don't go back and buy don't go today to buy the cheapest camera you can get. Because you got to once your level steps up, guess what you got to go do? Got to go buy that camera. But if you have already been shooting in 4K, let's say you make your film. It's a good film. And yes, people want it. But somebody goes, hey, do you have a 4K? We want it in 4K. Because again, now we're delivering in 4K. What happens when they deliver in 4K? What happens when they deliver in 8K? What happens? It's easy to bump a film, and I'm talking about film stock. That can be 4K. That's already big. That's already high quality. It's when you're looking at digital video, it gives or takes depending on the camera.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's what you don't know, right? I got to research my equipment. Before you buy a camera, study it. Study what's going on in the industry. Study how many people have been shooting with that camera for various projects. What has really made it? Because yes, I hear the iPhone thing. Yes, I use this camera. But I have a Canon 7D camera. I don't know where it's at. That was HD back then. Now it's obsolete. It shot for 20 minutes or 29 minutes or whatever and was shut off, and you got to restart it again. You got cameras that are continuous. So what is it? Cameras are forever changing. You know what I learned? If you can make an investment to a camera or you don't. I got some friends who buy cameras all the time, buy different cameras. They have a whole slew of different cameras. Actually, one of my friends, he has like 4 different cameras at my house right now. He's supposed to come get. But they've been sitting here for like 3 years. But they're 4K. A couple of them are 4K, a couple more HD. He's still looking at buying another camera now. You know what I'm saying? So, but guess what he has that isn't obsolete? His lenses. You're always going to use lenses. Right?
The
but
lenses
you can
work.
upgrade
That's
your
good,
lenses,
at least.
right?
Yeah,
but then if you go into cinema, because he takes photography, he does photography too. So that's another thing. So remember when I said TK, when people first asked me about making films, and I asked them what's their why? You know, why do you want to make movies? Why do you want to do this? Because this is not I can go buy paintbrush, I can airbrush and I can paint. It's cheaper for me to buy an airbrush and some paints than it is to buy the equipment I have.
Absolutely.
Actually, I will tell you the part of my grind. So here's one of my best kept secrets. You know, when college students go to college and they take out student loans and they get a check back, that's what I use for my businesses. Because you got to pay it back anyway. I just got X amount of years to pay it back, but I got to pay it back anyway. Now, not in college anymore, but I built something with that. Didn't go buy clothes. Well, I did freshman year. After freshman, sophomore year, I didn't buy clothes with my college money. I didn't buy the CD case or whatever. I didn't buy video games. I didn't do that. I knew I needed equipment. I know I want to make movies. I told my friends, I know you want to do this. I know you want to, whatever business you want to go in. I told people, I said, you know, it's crazy. We probably should have took our student loan money and put it down on houses and rented them jokers out. And we would have made the money back for school. No one taught us about real estate. No one taught us about investing. I bet you if you had took that money and put it in a 401k plan, it would have already made its money, most of it back.
Yep, nobody teaches us.
So that's what,
you know, because a lot of our parents were in survival mode, so they couldn't teach us what they didn't even know.
Right, and they don't know what they didn't know. Right,
and they don't know what they did not know.
And so, but if you're in school and you're trying to study film, you should be buying a camera, and you should be like, yo, I'm not saying you should buy a camera. I'm saying that your money could be used for that computer, that Apple computer. You're like, it's very expensive. Yeah. If you're in school, you get a student discount on top of that to buy that computer. So my $5,000 camera cost me $3,000.
That's good.
You hear what I just said? So, and I took my student loan money and I bought it, the computer, because I got to pay it back. But I don't, now it's paid off. But I'm actually moved on to the next. I've had 3 computers since then, but and they buy back their equipment too. But here's the other thing. So then if you take the camera, I was in grad school. I asked my parents to help me with a camera. I took my student loan money and gave them the money back. You can get a short-term loan that also builds your credit up. Right? Because you know you're going to get the money. Just don't spend it on nothing else.
Right.
Everything's
absolutely.
not an urgency, right? I guess I look at it different like this. And I guess it came with the rich dad, poor dad mentality. Whatever you buy should be able to make money for you. There's people now who bought clothes and they selling it. Um, well, small deviation. Foot Locker is closing Foot Lockers and going to specialty Foot Locker stores.
Mm.
Special stores for collectors, for buying
Wow.
shoes. Think about that for a second. The market recognizes where the market of the real money is, because all these people who were selling shoes on eBay and everything, they're just making a killing. Jordans and all that stuff, they was buying this amount of pair of shoes, and then the resale value is much higher.
Mm-hmm.
So Tone says, know your liability and your assets. Yeah, exactly. And so my camera's an asset. It makes money for me. I don't go shoot something. So if I buy it at the time, I was like, hey, I bought this camera for $5,000. I won't take any job under 2,500. And the reason I didn't do that is this. My camera wasn't cheap. My work isn't cheap either. I'm not a cheap worker. I do good quality stuff as far as I'm concerned. And if you've approached me to do your work, then you're saying, I'm familiar with what you do. I trust what you do. And I want to work with you.
Absolutely.
So you're not buying my camera. Let's put it that way. You're buying my skills, who I am, Michael Melvin, and my style of filmmaking. Because every cinematographer, every filmmaker, every director, you hire them because of their style and their skills. You're not going to go, if you had, like I said earlier on the show, if Steven Spielberg and Francis Ford Coppola were to make the same movie, get the same script, they're not going to make the same exact movie. It's not going to look the same.
Right.
It's not going to feel the same. That's what filmmaking is about. So when you hire an individual, you're not hiring them because they have microphones or they have, because you can get a microphone and learn how to plug it up and run it, and get decent or good sound. You're hiring them because they have the skills necessary to record good audio for your project, because you heard the skills they had for another project they did the audio for. That's why reels are important. That's why going to see the work that person has done. Don't just rely on YouTube, by the way. And the reason I say that is YouTube recompresses files. So I want to see your work on Vimeo, because Vimeo keeps the file the way it was. So I can hear the sound design. I can hear the stuff. So that's as a professional, you got to know what's what. Right. I think I talked a lot. So
no, it's a lot of good information. A lot of good information. A lot of good information.
And yes, you can back up to Dropbox. You can back up to, but you got to pay for all those things. And the more footage you have, the more storage
I'd rather just
space
have
you
my
need.
stuff.
But I mean, it's
In
still
my
good to
hand.
have online. But you got to remember, those companies get hacked. There's always something. So
Yeah.
you got to have a contingency for a contingency. If you don't plan,
Yep, true.
you got to have a plan for a plan.
True.
But I learned
Absolutely.
that in the beginning of this, because I ran into the mistakes. I ran into the dialogue was low, the volume, the air, all the artifacts of sound was in my work. I had to do dialogue replacement in the studio. That is not cheap.
ADR.
Yeah. Because just think about it. You got a 2-hour movie, you got to do the audio for a good majority of your scenes. Guess what? An actor can get in there and it's not going to take them. They might have acted that scene in X amount of minutes. But some actors, I had one actor, she kept changing her voice. It's like, that's not how you sounded. Don't do that, because they're hearing themselves and they're like, don't do that. Just do what you was doing when we were filming, please. But she was hearing herself and she kept, that's not how I like to sound. It's not about you. It's not what you gave me in the first. It sounds unnatural. Didn't understand that. Couldn't get it, especially if you're dealing with new actors. Right? People are voiceover trained. They aren't. So there's so many aspects as an independent filmmaker that will impact you sometimes greater than it does the professional filmmakers or the higher level. I'm more professional, because they're going to hire actors who are trained. This is why I tell actors who want to be actors, go get training. It's okay to tell them to get training, because I want you to be good. I want you to be more than good. I want you to be great.
Absolutely.
So I know we've been on longer than we normally would be. But I think talking about what you didn't know, and maybe we'll do a part 3 where you tell us a lot more, TK, because I think I talked a lot today. I felt like it.
No, no, no. I mean, because like the technical stuff and all that, we have to know that stuff, and we don't know what we don't know. And the technical stuff, no, no, no. That's why I'm like, shh, have at it, have at
Yeah.
it. I'm listening. I'm listening and learning like everyone else. We're
And I
all
will
in
say
school
this.
all the time.
If you're not going to buy equipment, you're going to lease it. If you're going to lease equipment, you have a budget to lease and insure your stuff. But talk to people. You find the cameras. If you're going to buy cameras, then you need to get familiar with the cameras. I do know some people may like lease a camera for like a day or two and play with it to familiarize themselves. They read on it, they watch all these YouTube things, and then they buy the camera, right? And then they go out and they shoot and they do stuff with it, and you're forever training on your equipment. If you know your camera so well that you know what to do and to make it look filmatic and all this stuff, you got it. That's the thing. We want to make a digital camera footage look cinematic
Hmm.
to emulate cinema. That's what we're doing because we're not using film anymore. We talk about film, but we're not shooting on film. And film was very expensive.
Right. Oh yeah.
Stock footage, the stock film, to film stock, and then to get it transferred, to get it digitized, to then we put it back on it. It was very expensive.
Mhm.
So, we glad. Is there a 1 minute, Jewel? TK, I'm so sorry. I know you're tired.
No, no, no. I don't know why I'm sleepy. On Saturday mornings, I wake up and I'm all like, let's get dressed. And then I get sleepy. But no, 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 no. Um, my biggest thing that's hitting my spirit now is the same thing is get on set.
Mhm.
Get on set because that is where you're going to learn a lot of I didn't know what I didn't know is actually being on set. Not watching us, not watching YouTube videos, not reading a book, but when you get on set and that hands on, like Michael was talking about from the TV station, that hands on, that's where you're going to learn a lot of I didn't know what I do. So that is
Oh,
small set, big set, any set.
I'm telling you, she's right. That's my Jewel. She's right. She's right.
He's like, she's right. That's my
She's
jewel.
right. Because you know why? Because I thought about it. I was on the set of Homicide because we were interviewing the line producer. You get what I'm saying? Like for my
Hmm.
internship, I was at an
Wow.
artist's house watching him paint and filming it because I was doing my electronic field production and I was running mic.
Mm.
I was doing lighting, whereas an artist who was working with metal sculpturing with a torch, everything. And my job there was camera. You see what I'm saying? But I met people. I met
Hmm.
government officials because we had to
Wow.
do live via satellite pre-recorded footage. Like
Wow.
we interviewed, they had one person. It was so cool. They had one person interview him. We edited the footage. They had another person who was the actual interviewer, and they made it look like they were talking tele thing before then. And today, you and
Mm.
I are on the internet. Remember, I
Wow.
designed this out, right? We are now on the
Yeah.
internet talking live. Like this isn't pre-recorded stuff. I had to do it, and I pre-recorded an interview with Tupac. And yes, I mispronounce Illuminati. I call it Killuminate or something like that. I got stuck with my words doing it. I was like, because it was so hard to like, oh yeah, you had to write your questions and you're like, it looked like I was interviewing Tupac, and it was an interview we took from MTV. It was for my school, um, but they taught me the stuff I know and the technical
Wow.
stuff. Like in doing the in front of the camera stuff, I still learned the background stuff, right?
Hmm.
I hate the front stuff. Like I don't care to be on camera that much. I
Right.
love the background stuff. I love being a creative. I love filming. I love editing. I love shooting. I love directing. I enjoy those things. But I know I can get in front of a camera. I'm not in front of it every Saturday with you. But I know I can do it because
Exactly.
I went to school and
Yes.
I did it, right? Um,
Yeah.
and this is where not knowing, but like there's everybody's there. Some people won't go to school for this. And it's okay if
Mm-hmm.
you don't. But there's some benefits to it. Also, I hear people don't go to film school. They're right. But then again, because Jacoby's in school right now. He's going to the school I went to.
Mm-hmm.
He's in a different program. His program is shorter than mine, but he's doing the media stuff and doing it for the internet. He's learning that stuff now.
Okay.
And so it all depends, right? You did seminars and workshops. You still went somewhere. You just didn't go to formal education like a college or anything, but you still went
Right.
to something and studied under people who did this. And
Mm-hmm.
all of our now the school we were at, all of our professors were are and were in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we went to I went to the Academy of Arts. Jacoby is at the Academy of Arts. All the professors are professionals who do this every day in the industry. Just like I do this and my students get this information, they do it. And I was the student getting the
Right.
information.
That's so awesome.
So thank you y'all for joining us. We appreciate
Thank
y'all.
you guys for hanging with us.
It's been
Yay.
hey, yeah, you know what? We were on to 12. We actually promised ourselves we'd never go this long. But I guess it was so much information. And
It's so much information.
yeah, Darrell said those workshops are amazing.
Yes, absolutely. I love them.
You know. So thank you guys. We are always humbled and we love the fact that you guys are willing to take your time to hang out with us on Saturday morning.
Yes.
It's going to be so we to be kind of slightly transparent, not fully, but slightly transparent. It may be touch and go with some of the shows in this near future. Not saying we're not coming back, we're not doing them. It's just some personal situations have occurred that we may not have a show for a couple weeks or something like that, depending. But we are planning to be on next Saturday and the Saturday after that for as of now. But we'll let you know definitely as soon as a Friday or Thursday that if we'll be on or not. And TK is working on her film, things like that. So much is happening. And
There's a
so
lot
just
going on.
want to
Yeah.
give you a heads up. So maybe this is a blessing. God is just saying, hey, you guys be on a little bit longer. So I don't know. But hopefully you guys get all this stuff that we're saying. And we got a book coming, got consulting coming. So there's so many aspects to this
Yeah.
to help you guys start if you haven't started,
Yes.
or focus on ways to help you become successful.
Absolutely.
And again, Tubi is getting all these films, so I'm gonna need y'all go ahead and not slack. Make
Gotcha.
your film, make it short, do your thing. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends about it, post this on your page, whatever you got to do. And hey, thank you for joining us here at the Black Filmmakers Lounge. I'm your host, Michael Melvin, with my co-host, Tamara TK Henderson, the wonderful script writer. So, you need a script rating? Call TK. You need consulting? Call TK. All right, so we're going to let you know the Black Filmmakers Lounge is where independent or interdependent filmmakers, whether novice or professionals, come together to gain insight and perspective through education, information, networking, and to discuss industry best practices that will advance the Black interdependent film community. So thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, share. Have fun.
Share.
Enjoy your Saturday. Mine is raining. So go shoot something, make something, go research something, do what you're going to do, or go just enjoy your family. All right? Like, subscribe, share.
Like,
we love y'all.
Share. Like, subscribe, and share. Hey, like, subscribe, and share. Like,
we out,
subscribe,
y'all.
and share.
Peace.
Bye.